If Jesus was a Jew, why aren't Christians all Jews? Because Jews don't recognize Jesus as the Son of God. Christians do. Imagine if Jesus was Christian. Now that would be something. Because the Jews rejected Jesus as the Messiah, Christianity was also founded on the tenet of spreading the faith to everyone, while Judaism is an insular religion strictly for Jewish people. Well, he was only Jewish. This feels like a loaded question. Firstly, Jew is not only a religion, but an ethnicity due to the close-knit nature of Judaism throughout history. Jesus was both ethnically Jewish, and at the time he was alive, a practitioner of the form of Judaism that existed at the time. However, his teachings went beyond the scope of religious Judaism, establishing a new paradigm in theology that many of the Jewish religious leaders at the time found outrageous and blasphemous, given the fact they try and eventually succeed in getting Jesus executed by the Roman state. Christianity is founded on the teachings, sermons, and theological beliefs taught by Jesus and his apostles and followers, which go beyond the scope of religious Judaism and in some cases reject aspects of their religion altogether, especially given that Christianity became widely popular among Gentiles, non-Jews. A lot of certain rules and restrictions no longer made sense to apply as they were meant to maintain the Jewish identity, or because Christ or his most ardent followers said that they were no longer necessary. A more simplistic view is this: Jews believe in a prophesied individual known as the Messiah, who would come and rule as the King of the Jews. Jesus was born and was viewed as the prophesied Messiah. Many Jews and Gentiles began to follow him, but many Jews, especially religious leaders, rejected him as being the Messiah. The Jews and others that followed Jesus formed Christianity, while those that rejected him remained religiously Jewish. If you want to read the moment that Christianity switched from being just another sect of Judaism and its own religion, read Acts 15. By this point, Peter had already converted the first Gentiles, non-Jews. As more Gentiles were being converted, some Christian Jews started teaching that Gentiles had to get circumcised like Jews did. It caused an uproar, and ultimately the apostles ruled that Gentiles didn't need to become Jews, because the Torah was impossible to keep. So thus the non-Jewish church grew. Martin Luther was a Catholic, yet he founded the Protestant movement. Gregor Friedrich Engels came from a capitalist family, yet he founded the communist ideology. Edit. Thanks to you, Umang Jane 25 for the correction. We believe that Jesus was the promised Jewish Messiah who came to set up his own kingdom. The Jews had a covenant between them and God that required a strict adherence to the Old Testament laws. There was a temple sacrificial system and numerous required rituals. Orthodox Jews practice a version of this today. Jesus ushered in a new kingdom under a new covenant. This is why Christians do not require Old Testament rituals such as circumcision or strict dietary laws. Under the new covenant, Christians are to love God and their neighbor above all else and seek to be a light in this world. To understand Jesus' manifesto, read the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 57. So Christians do a good job at this? Mostly not, but there are some communities that do. Jesus was an American. He fought in the Revolution and then went on to start the Republican Party. Or am I getting too much right-wing propaganda? If we evolved from apes, why are there still apes? Same concept. Religions were more likely to be associated with specific ethnic groups and weren't usually proselytized to other people. Romans worshipped Roman gods, Egyptian gods, etc. Jews worshipped their Jewish God. These groups didn't necessarily try to spread their religion in the way Catholic missionaries would. Christianity was unique in the region in that it transcended cultural boundaries, as did Islam later on. The Jews are waiting for a Messiah who will be a Jew. Jesus, a Jew, comes along and some Jews accept him as the Messiah. Some don't. That's where the split happens. Christians still rely on the same Holy Scripture as the Jews, but they call it the Old Testament. The New Testament contains the scripture related to Jesus. What will blow your mind are Semites include Jews and Arabs. So anti-Arab is technically anti-Semitic. It's important to note what was going on during the time of historical Jesus, and look at sources outside of the Bible for a clear picture. He lived when the Roman Empire occupied huge swaths of countries, with Rome acting as a police state towards the people originally living there. There was massive poverty, slavery, Romans treated original citizens poorly, etc. And this wasn't just in Judea, but all Roman-occupied areas. Okay, so that's going on. Now in Judea specifically you have a religion, and group of religious leaders, that have created extremely strict regulations that people need to follow, and often skew these regulations to line their coffers. People that don't follow regulations are treated very poorly. So, historical Jesus' message that everyone was worth something, that you can get to the afterlife of heaven and be with God even if you don't follow the religion of the day, was ultimately for the poor and the slaves. Both of those groups weren't just Jews in Judea. So when Jesus was martyred, it started what would become essentially a suicide cult. The Roman Empire saw the new religion's defiance to power as a threat, and began killing Christians to try to stamp it out. But Christians usually went to their deaths without fear because they believed in an afterlife. Without mediation, their fearless deaths were conversion points for many other people, and the cycle went on. So after a few hundred years of this, the Roman Emperor Constantine realized that he could use Christianity's fanatical following to his advantage, and made a huge reversal by making Christianity the main religion of Rome. And that is an extremely brief summation of some incredibly complex historical workings. There's a lot more, but a good place to start would be researching podcasts or series on Roman history at the time. Romans, luckily for us, were really similar to modern societies and meticulous record keepers. Christianity was really based on Paul, not Jesus. Jesus was the story Paul used to base Christianity off of. At that time, there were probably a bunch of people like Jesus running around trying to prove they are the one. Paul and the whole baptism movement just became the popular one. I got this joke from a Jew. The son of a Jewish man got a girlfriend, but she was Christian. They wanted to marry. The father said that she needs to convert to follow the Jewish rules. But the son replied according to the Christian rules he needs to convert and he loves her so much that he would do that for her. The father didn't know what to do, so he prayed to God. It's terrible. I have a son and he wants to convert to Christianity. I don't know what to do. God replied, "Oh, I had the same problem once." The man asked confused, "Really? What did you do?" "Oh, I just wrote a New Testament," God replied. Jesus and his disciples were all Jewish. According to the Gospels, Jesus told his disciples to go into the world, share his message with people. The disciples went out and started sharing the message of Jesus with Jewish and non-Jewish people. As non-Jewish people started accepting the message of Jesus, it led to a question. Do these non-Jewish people have to become Jewish in order to accept Jesus Christ? It was decided that no, non-Jewish people do not have to become Jewish in order to accept Jesus. Most Christians today are not Jewish, so they don't have to become Jewish. We became Christians after the death and ascension of Jesus. Jews still consider that Jesus never ascended. Thus they are not Christians. Jews deny that Jesus is God's son and doesn't believe he's a prophet. Just a good person. Very oversimplified, but that's basically it. The original followers of Jesus were all Jews. The leader, pillar, of the movement was James, the brother of Jesus. Based in Jerusalem, Paul was not a member of the original Jesus followers group. In fact, he said he persecuted them. He had some sort of vision or epiphany on the road to Damascus which changed him. Paul, traveled in Turkey and Greece and tried to convert pagans to Christianity. And he found that the biggest obstacle, stumbling block, was the requirement to be circumcised to become a full-fledged Jew. For some reason, male converts were reluctant to put their male members on the chopping block. There was a battle of minds between Paul and the original Christ followers in Jerusalem, and they reached some sort of compromise. Or at least Paul claims they did, such that circumcision was not required for a pagan to become a Jesus follower. Paul's letters suggest that he went even further and told his converts that it was not necessary to follow any of the Jewish laws, the laws of Moses, from the Old Testament. The original Jewish followers of Jesus were scattered to the winds when Rome destroyed Jerusalem in the year 70, and their numbers dwindled over the following decades and centuries. And they left no writings to contradict the story told by Paul. So Paul hijacked the original Jewish sect of Jesus followers and turned it into a non-Jewish religion. Him dying on the cross changed that.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. TooAfraidToAsk is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.